my name is Judy and I'm the City Stitcher, and welcome to my Flosstube channel. Today is Sunday, February the 13th, and it has been a sunny day this morning. So unlike several weeks where I've said that I've woken up on a Sunday and went, oh, it's gray and cloudy, I don't know if it's going to be warm enough to film in the sunroom. This morning it was very easy, where I went, this is going to be a lovely day to film in the sunroom. And the interesting thing is, as I was pulling everything together after lunch to get ready to film this, it started to cloud over. So the room is lovely and warm, but I am not being blinded by the light. So yeah, it's lovely out here. And in fact, so yesterday was a lovely day as well, to the point where after lunch yesterday, I went, forget all the home chores that you were supposed to be accomplishing today. You are going to go and you're going to sit in the sunroom and stitch, because it was just lovely, 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 lovely. So yes, behind on home chores, and I don't really care because it was just lovely sitting out here and stitching. And with that, this is a channel about cross-stitching and the stitching that I have done this week. So if you are a new viewer, thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me. And if you're a returning viewer, as always, thank you so much for coming back and checking up and see how my journey has been this week. So a couple of things. I'm going to start off with best new thing this week, which is, I don't normally do this, but I am wearing my best new thing. So this week I got a couple of ponchos that I have added to the collection. There's this one which I'm wearing, and the other one which I'm pretty sure you will see in a forthcoming episode, because I'm very excited about them. Now, the funny thing about this particular poncho is, when I was originally trying it on in the store, I put it on and went, oh, this would be fantastic for stitching. I know, it's an odd thing to come through your head when you're trying on clothes. So I do have several ponchos in my collection, but the interesting thing about this one is that on the sides, it really effectively only comes down to sort of elbow length, or just, you know, beyond the elbow, 3/4 length in terms of length on the sides. A lot of my other ones are longer than that. They really go down to my wrist. I was having a problem. I was going to say ankle, and that's clearly not correct. Came down to my wrist, which means you have fabric that comes all the way down here. But with this one and the other one that I got, they are sort of more elbow length, which means you don't have all that fabric, or, you know, so that as you're stitching and you're moving your hands, you don't have a lot of the fabric in the center. So it was really awesome. So these have been added to my stash. I wore the other one yesterday while I was out here in the sunroom, and even though it was lovely and warm, that one I was wearing the poncho with my short sleeve shirt. This one is coming out today, so I'm very happy with these additions to my collection. Plan on wearing them quite a bit, because they're the perfect ponchos for stitching. And anyway, we all know I'm a little sensitive about temperature and all that kind of stuff, so these were fantastic additions to my wardrobe, and I'm very happy with them. And with that, thank you so much for all the comments on last week's video. That was great. Before we get into a lot of them, Hedden, or maybe it's Hedden, left me a comment to say that it was 23 degrees Fahrenheit where they are in New Mexico. And I will totally confess that I don't tend to... I don't know enough about New Mexico temperatures, but I'm feeling like 23 degrees Fahrenheit for you is an unusually cold number. So I hope that you're recovering from that. And for any of you who were caught up in that storm last weekend with all of the heavy snow accumulation and ice things that were going on in the northeastern part of the US, I hope that you are managing to dig your way out of that. And I hope that the temperatures are turning around for you, so that you can get rid of some of that accumulation without having the overnight freezing, because that's always the worst. It's always nice when it's pleasant in the day and the accumulation is going away, but if it freezes overnight, that makes things not good either. So I hope everybody is recovering from that. So thank you so much. It sounded like a lot of you have ordered from Owl Forest Embroidery, and as far as I can tell, they've generally all been really pleasant experiences, which is great. just a quick little comment about threads. So there was a comment that came in from Bridget. She was talking about that she had ordered a kit from Owl Forest, and on, I think it's on one of the colors, she did get a little bit tight on how much floss she had, to the point where she was sort of going back into the Ort bin and sort of getting some of those back out to finish it off. Now, at the end, she did say that she had enough, but I have made a mental note to myself to, as always, at the beginning of a kit, just cautious, be efficient about your floss usage, just in case. And again, when you buy the kit, you don't have optionality as to what you're getting in the kit, like you do with the thread packs. So when you order the kit, you get the fabric of a specific count and type, and they give you the floss that, according to them, is what you will need to stitch it up on that particular thread count. So even if you ordered a kit and you were like, I'm planning on swapping out the fabric for something else, my recommendation to you is make sure that whatever the count is, like if the kit comes with 28 count, if you go up to 32 or 36, you'll be fine. If the kit comes with 32 or 36 count fabric, you cannot go. I would say that it will be probably quite challenging for you if you're trying to swap out the fabric and go down to a 32 or a 28, because you may not have enough. Now, the other point on that is when you get the kit, so when you order the kit, it doesn't tell you what floss it's coming with, but on your actual pattern for that kit, it does tell you what it is. Now, I didn't go back and check the threads for my particular kit, the Cherry Orchard, but my expectation, without having done the homework to confirm this, is that probably that those threads are part of their regular line, and so that if you're concerned, you can order another skein of that particular color. Again, with every over-dyed thread, dye lot issues could be a bit of an issue. But I will say this, and it's, again, for me, for Cherry Orchard, when I start that, I will be doing a center start, because we all know I need to have things symmetrical on the fabric that I'm using. Weird, I get that. But it also means if you start in the center and work your way out, that if you're running out and you need to get another skein and it is a different dye lot, if you've sort of kept it symmetrical as you're working your way out, at least that part will end up sort of further out and you can maybe make it symmetrical that way. Now, that's me, and I know that everybody starts in all sorts of different places and it may not necessarily work for anybody else. But I do, I'm think that's also playing into that. I've also made a note, make sure, if I was even remotely going to try to do something else, make sure that you start your kit in the center and work your way out, because it gives me that flexibility. Joanne also had a really, really great comment about threads and the thread packs that you can get. So she made the comment that when she's ordering a thread pack for a chart that she's getting from Owl Forest Embroidery, that she always gets it for the 28 count using 3 strands. Why? Because it ensures that she has extra. And I went to myself, oh my goodness, that's brilliant. Of course, pay for the extra skeins, ship it all at one time. That way, whenever you're getting ready to work on it. So like even if I were doing it on 28 count, generally I tend to be at 2 strands over 2 on 28 count if that's what I'm doing. If I bought the thread pack for 3 strands over 2 linen threads on 28 count, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to have some extra, and that gives you that extra to allow for, you know, when we make mistakes, because as she said, counting is hard. Mistakes, ripping out, all that kind of stuff, it will certainly sort of give you that flexibility that you won't be going like, oh my goodness, I ordered this thread pack and I'm not going to have enough. So I thought that was a really brilliant idea. And again, so I've made a mental note of that. So for some of the other things that I have on my to shop for at Owl Forest Embroidery list, If I'm getting the thread packs, I'm doing what Joanne does, and I'm going to get the 28 count with 3 strands, because then I know I'm going to have enough. So Joanne, thank you so much for the comment. That was awesome, because that's certainly been added into my shopping arsenal, because I needed that. Anyway. Charlotte, thank you for telling me that you'd ordered 2 kits, but you didn't tell me which ones, so I was a little disappointed not finding out what's coming up. Quill pen, I thought was, is that the one? Good grief, I can't. Oh yeah, Quill pen, she was the one that said that she was ordering from Al Forst Embroidery, and after having watched, she added Cherry Orchard kit to hers. So you're welcome. I think it's going to be lovely. I think it's going to be lovely. I'm very excited about that kit. It is in the 5-year stitching plan. I know when I'm planning on starting it. I think it's going to be awesome. All right. EJ, thanks for your comment, and to those of you who comment who were grateful that I had rescued my mother's project from, you know, the garbage bin. Like, anyway, I'm still on, like, who throws that out? Like, it's just craziness, but okay, anyway, rescued. And I understood your comments around the dyeing. Still haven't decided, you know, what I'm going to do about that. And, you know, as we all know, we've seen my stitching plans. I've got, you know, a good 5 years to figure out what I'm planning on doing with that to solve it. So stay tuned, because at some point I'll know what my decision is. So I got a comment both from EJ as well as I got a comment from Sheila, both from the Sunshine Stitchers. Yay! I feel like I'm having celebrities who are watching my Flosstube. It's very exciting. And Sheila was kind of chuckling about my comment that she was very happy that I did manage to join in and participate in their focus on a designer you know, stitch along, which they've got a different designer for every month of 2022, and sort of saying, yeah, odd how they didn't come up with their designers until late 2021, early 2022. You know, and of course my 5-year stitching plan, I need way more notice if I'm going to participate in that. So I thought that was I thought that was a really great funny comment, and went, yeah, what can I say when you've got a 5-year stitching plan? These people who are coming up with new random things, it's harder for me to participate. I do it to myself, and I'm totally fine with that. So anyway, but thanks for thinking of me. Okay, lots of comments about the sampler of stitches, and we're going to talk about those when we get to that one. Lena's asked a question about how I use my scroll rods. Lena, if you want to throw in a couple of more specific questions about what you're asking about how I use them, I'd be that sounds like a really great topic for in 2 weeks, and we'll talk about that there. So throw a couple more specific questions down, and happy to talk about that. Feel like there's one more, and so grateful. She's got a Flosstube channel as well. Thank you so much for your very kind comments. I really did appreciate that. That was very nice of you. Thank you. All right, and with that, we're going to get going, because believe it or not, there's lots to talk about this week. All right, yes, big piles. Sorry, I just need to reach over here and grab my other table, because I'm looking at my pile and going, I'm going to need to put things somewhere else so I know what I've done. So I realized, as usual, after I was talking about things last week, the things that I forgot to say. So here again is my very small start. Wow, that weight's blowing out. On my Deb's Winter Biscornu from the Winter 2021 Punch Needle Primitive Stitcher magazine. So I'm doing this on 32 count. I had a problem with this last week too. White opalescent linen. It should not be that hard. One of the comments that I forgot to say last week about this is that I was working on the Rosewood Manor Christmas quilts, and that is a opalescent Lugana, also white. And I commented when I was working on it that I wasn't having any problems. I thought the interesting thing is when I came back to this one, I struggled more with the opalescent on the linen than I was with the Lugana. So it might just have to do with the fact of how it's woven in, and that linen is different than an even weave, and you know, whatever. But I did, I sort of had that, I was like, oh, I forgot to say, it's like, it was a little bit more of a struggle on this piece than it was on the Lugana. So I've made a note of that for myself. Although, wait, I have another thing. I've forgotten to bring it. So, you know, that'll be something I add to next week's little agenda about opalescent linen, but we'll come with that. So quick comment on that one because I had forgotten to mention that. So let's get into my stitching this week. So I'm happy with my stitching this week. What did I stitch on? So we're going to go back to Temperature Tree by the Stitchin' Mommy. So I worked on this this week. Yes, let's put that there. So I got all of the November branch. The branch was completed, as well as all of the leaves on that, which means I am now working on my December branch. I was hoping to get all of the December branch, but didn't quite get that accomplished. That's totally fine. But as usual, I have these things where it's always interesting to me to watch the temperatures. So the piece of paper that I have printed out as I'm stitching this actually really just has the date plus the color for that leaf. It doesn't necessarily have the temperature beside it. I do have the temperatures. They're all sitting up in a spreadsheet up on my computer, but as I'm stitching it, I really just have the date plus the DMC color that I'm using. So when I started to stitch November, you know, so I started off with this light aqua, which is the same as over here, where I was like, oh yeah, that really cold, you know, Halloween, and November started off cold. And the very next one was the lightest of the greens. And I went, wonder if that's right. I don't know about that. Anyway, so, but I went, ignore that, and I went and I continued stitching and all that kind of stuff. And so I finished all of that color, and there were quite a few days of that lightest green on that branch. And so after I finished that color, I dutifully went upstairs and opened up the Excel file and went, nope, that's correct. All of those light greens there represent days in November where the high those days was plus 14 degrees Celsius. Where I go, ooh, that's a warm one. And in fact, we had 2 days, this one and that one, that are yellow. Those days were plus 17. Loveliness, loveliness, loveliness. Anyway, don't you worry. This branch is going to look completely different. It's going to look a little more like my February branch over here. But yes, made progress on that. I'm having my moment saying, so my expectation this week is I will probably get the December branch completed. So then I've got trunk. Now, we're still not horrendously close to a finish on this. Pretty close, but not overly there. I've got to figure out, I've got to go find my alphabet so that I can decide, so I can put my location here on the sides. And hopefully that alphabet will also come with numbers, because although they're going to be different, there's probably going to be one size for the font here on the side for the location, and a different one, because as I said, I'm planning on putting the year 20, this is my 2021 tree, and putting 2021 in here into the center of the tree. I still also have to figure out my leaves that I'm planning on putting down here, like they're laying on the ground, which is going to show the range. So that needs to be done. Although I have been back in the Facebook group for this, and I have 2 or 3 examples, which I think are pretty good, that are similar to how I want this to look, as well as I think I'm going to try to have a few falling from the tree. And I have to decide what colors those are going to be and what those are going to look like. So it's a lot of progress. We are heading into, you know, at some point this is going to be complete, and I won't be working on the temperature tree, which I will actually miss. This was, again, I've said this a bajillion times. I have loved working on this tree. So Sarah, thank you so much for coming up with this design. It has been an awesome stitch. And as I've said, I am planning on stitching another one, but probably not for a couple of years, even though I love this one. And plans are meant to be changed. So who knows what I'm going to end up doing on that. Okay, so that was the temperature tree. Also from last week, my new start for February 1st was, of course, from Country Cottage Needleworks, the February Cottage of the Month, which I had made pretty good progress on last week. And as expected, I finished it. So here is my February Cottage of the Month, fully complete. Happy with how that turned out. I'm happy with my DMC changes here. I did make a note on my spreadsheets where what the changes were, and have noted that in a future month, I think it's DMC 435 gets used again, so it'll be interesting to see when I get to that month whether I revert back to this version of brown, or whether the DMC 435 is the right color for that particular one. So again, looking at this, I'm really happy that I toned down the browns. I don't have them here with me, so I don't remember what they are, but they will be in the notes below if you're looking for what I changed those to. So I'm very happy with my February cottage, which means so far this year I have been successful because I have both January and February all stitched up, completed. I'm very happy with these. When I was originally planning on working on these, I had been thinking about that I was potentially going to change the background fabric for these ones, and that I wasn't necessarily going to have to use the same color every month. I, of course, have since changed my mind on that, and as I have kitted it up, I have made the decision that I am doing all of these on, every month will be done on 32 count Icelandic blue linen from Witchelt. Just because I think it's, as far as I'm concerned, the light blue goes with everything. As I said last week, I'm calling Icelandic blue my equivalent of lamb's wool. As far as I'm concerned, the white shows up perfectly well on this, so there's no concerns about that, and it will keep my series looking fairly consistent. Now, also, as you can tell, all of the pieces are cut down. So I am not planning on stitching this as one large piece. I am planning on stitching them all individually. How they're going to end up being finished is a whole other kettle of fish to be decided at a different point in time. But I'm keeping up with this goal for 2022 as well, which I'm very happy about. My goals are working out so well for this year. All right. Now, I think I mentioned last week that I was planning on having a new start on Sunday, which I did, which of course is leading to the topic for this particular week. So this is, I started on French Country Crown, which says To the Queen by JBW Designs. And I made sure for that particular one, the whole goal this year was for sure that it needed to be started on February the 6th, because that is the platinum anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II descending to the throne of the United Kingdom, as well as the Commonwealth. I have a very sad little start about this, but I'll tell you what I'm planning on doing. I am stitching this on 28 count Navy Lugana, and I am stitching it entirely with beads. So it's a very small start on that. And we'll talk about why that is in just a minute. Let's throw this on the board. It'll add a little bit of help here. Okay, so there's my very sad little start, which is, I don't know, 30-ish sew beads that I got on there. I am stitching this with Mill Hill 42010. Now, you're not going to see how sparkly they are, but they're very sparkly and silver. And so my whole reason for doing this is several years ago, Stitching in Sequins she had done a chart that was sort of a fancy shoe, and she had stitched it entirely in beads, and it looked awesome. Now, I wasn't sure that I was necessarily going to do a lot of that, you know, but that shoe one also hangs out there as a possibility. But when I was looking for a piece for me to commemorate Queen Elizabeth's anniversary, I got this particular chart. This was acquired last year, and this is what I was going to do it on. Now, on the inside of this, they do show an alternate, which is what got me started. So they did show inside stitching it on a navy blue. Now, they stitched it with white, which is great. And so I decided I was going to do mine on navy blue as well, but I, of course, it's going to be all done with beads, which I think is going to look lovely. Lovely, lovely. There's not a lot on there because, one, I thought I had the right beading needle and I did not. And then I had already started and I was just like, forget it. So I have decided that I'm going to do this the hardest way possible. So it's going to be entirely done with beads. I'm stitching it on a dark fabric. I am also using invisible thread to attach the beads. Personal choice, personal choice. I'm doing it to myself, and I'm doing that because for me, I really like the effect that at the end of your piece that it's very difficult to see how you've attached them. And so particularly for this one, I thought it was the right choice. I tend to do all of my beading with invisible thread. It's challenging to work with. It's not the easiest thing to do, which of course added to my slowness here. But again, I'm happy with my decision. Good grief, the light is totally weird today. I'm happy with my decision and I will continue doing it. My plan for this is that I will be stitching this on the 6th of every month, certainly for 2022. We'll see how long it takes me to work this up. The stitch count on this is 71 by 63 is the official count to get to the queen. I am planning on adding more to this. So below here, so again, welcome to Judy working through the land of fonts and alphabets, which I'm going to say right now my primary plan is Lord Libidin. I'm going to go check on his site, as well as I have the Ultimate Sampler Motif book by Brenda Keyes, which has alphabets in there. So hopefully between those two combinations, I will come up with something. So I want one that looks very similar to this particular font because I want to then add below this Elizabeth II. And then I am planning on adding even further below that, February 6, 1952, which is the date of her ascension. And I'm planning on adding her death date, which sounds a little morbid. So this piece will not be completed until Elizabeth has passed away, which I'm hoping is not going to be for quite a few more years. But I really want to have this piece as my personal commemorative piece for Queen Elizabeth. I was having a bit of a chat with my parents and I said, she's the only queen I'm ever going to know in my lifetime. which is true for a lot of people. So this is going to be my commemorative piece for Queen Elizabeth. Happy with my start on it. Note to self, hopefully the days when the 6th comes up, that hopefully those will be bright sunshiny days where I can work on it in the daylight hours, because anyway, once I get myself organized, I'll do better at this one. But I got to start on it. I'm very happy with my start. I'm very happy with how the beads look in real life. I don't think it looks as great on camera as I feel it does in real life. So I'm very happy with this. I think it's going to look awesome at the end. And again, so that was great. So that was my new start on Sunday. As I said last week, my plan for this last week, this was going to be a whip week. In my current rotation, my current rotational plan that I'm stitching on. So then of course I finished up my February cottage. And once that was done, I was like going, so what am I going to work on next? And it was going to be a whip. And so I decided I was going to pull out this one. So this is Choose Joy from My Big Toe. This was a start for me in May of 2020 when I was doing Sania with Lindy Stitches, where you had a focus piece during the week and then you started something new every weekend. And so this is one of my new starts on a weekend way back in May of 2020 and has not been worked on since. It gets a little complicated here, so just stay tuned for just a second. And itchy nose. Yes, complicated, complicated. More complicated than it needs to be. And this is where I got to. So technically at this point in time, it is completely stitched. I, of course, did not use any of the called for colors. So for the blue, I used Caron Waterlilies Polar Ice. For the green, I used, I didn't bring it with me, Dinky Dyes Irish Meadows, which I had to fussy cut. There's some very dark gray in there, which I ended up on the length that I cut that out. Anyway, long story short, did fussy cut my Irish Meadows. Happy with that color combination. The called for color for this block in the Choose Joy was, I think it's Gentle Arts Soot, which I changed to Dinky Dyes Midnight, which I was rethinking. So when I finished it, and I was like going, it's not bad, but and I've decided my issue is I don't think that this navy blue, you know, is particularly joyful. So then I went back into, I was, you know, thinking about things and went, oh, you know, so I was back into my DMC color card and went, you know, add a different color, etc., etc. But I've come up with what I think the decision is, which hopefully tonight will all get worked out. So I have pulled out a skein of Weeks Dye Works Bethlehem, which is heavily multicolored, but there is green in here and there is navy blue. I forgot to say, I am doing this on a piece of 40 count white Verdal. So Verdal is an even weave at 40 count. Straight off the bolt, it only comes in white as far as I know. There are a couple of fabric dyers that are starting to dye Verdal, but I wouldn't say that it's heavily prevalent. So dyeing for cross stitch does dye Verdal, and Jody from Steel City Stitchers has been known to dye Verdal as well. And again, so I'm doing this with one strand of thread over two fabric threads. And again, I think that coverage is fine. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out one strand, and I'm gonna have to pull it off the skein and decide, but I think I'm gonna rip out the Joy and restitch it in Weeks Dye Works Bethlehem. I don't know if I remember to say, so this is Bethlehem. Caution, caution, caution. If you are looking at this strand of Bethlehem and going, that looks really interesting, and I would like to get some Bethlehem too and add it to my stash, or I think about putting it in with a project, I will caution you right now that Bethlehem now does not look like this. So if you have an LNS that has older stock, you might be able to get a skein that looks like this. The newer versions of Bethlehem that have been arriving certainly to my LNS have a lot more yellow in them. They're a lot paler than this. So there's a part of me that goes, there's a couple of things that I have planned for Bethlehem in my stash, and I was like going, ooh, you're going to be cutting into one of your very, very important skeins of floss that you're holding in your stash. And then I went, you really need to get a grip, because there's not exactly a ton of stitches in that word Joy, and you only need one strand, so get over yourself and it'll be fine. So I'm planning on breaking into this stash and restitching that word Joy with Bethlehem. But again, if you're excited about this skein of floss and how it looks, caution, caution, caution. If you are to order this from a store currently, do not expect your skein to look like this. The last time that I was out to the Stitching Corner, which is one of my LNSs that is open for in-store shopping, not all of them are, but that one is, I looked at their Bethlehem and went, wow, it is so different. So I took one look at the Bethlehem and went, I'm leaving it there in the shop because it looks so different. And of course I went, I am so grateful that I have the Bethlehem that I have in my stash. I do have multiple skeins because, as I said, I've got a couple of plans for how this is going to get used, but I'm going to break into this one skein and pull off a strand and rip out the Joy. And again, if I put this in and I don't like it and I have to rip it out again, so be it. I can put it back in with the Dinky Dyes Midnight, which is not hard to come by. And certainly how far I broke into my skein to stitch the outline of the box and choose Joy was not particularly, a lot. So I've got lots left to go on that. I don't know why the light is going so weird here, but anyway. So there's my Choose Joy for now. That Joy is going to get restitched. And if you may not necessarily remember that, again, my whole reason for choosing this was, again, welcome to, stitching with my mother's leftovers. Yes, that didn't work. That's close enough. My whole reason for choosing that particular piece and specifically putting it on the 40 count Verdal is because of how this is supposed to end up being finished. Let's also note that the time frame for when this is going to get fully finished is also unknown, but we're a lot further along. Is because I had gotten this bowl from my mother. Now, she had participated in a class, and so she did this little bit of hardanger, which is stitched on 22 count hardanger. It's in an ivory color with cream. and it's very nice. And again, it was stitched to fit in the top of this bowl, but I felt I could do better. And if you recall way back when I was originally talking about this, part of the problem was, unfortunately, I was doing this before everything went into lockdown, is that I was specifically looking for a blue that coordinated with this container, this pot, which is how I ended up buying a new skein of Polar Ice. I already had Polar Ice in my stash, but it did not go well with this, but the one in the store actually did. And so when it gets finally finished, that's how it's going to look, which I think that looks lovely. Again, so not fully finished. I'm hoping that this is going to be the screen capture for this particular episode. Which relates nothing to the topic, and it is not, this is totally, bait and switch, because this is clearly not fully finished, but I think it looks lovely in there. Lovely, lovely, lovely. I'm very happy with how this has turned out. Again, I think I'm just going to fix that joy. Check back in next week, because that's on my task list for tonight, is to rip that out, restitch it in the Bethlehem, and if I don't like that, rip it out again and restitch it back in the Dinky Dyes Midnight. So very happy with that, and hopefully one of these days I will actually get it officially fully finished. Oh yes. So I have the rest of my piece of Verdal here. So there are in my stash from this same series from my big toe, I have 2 other charts. I also have Embrace Moments and Cherish Friends. So I think I'm also going to stitch those on the 40 count Verdal as well. Keep them all the same size. Don't really know how that translates into something after the fact. I don't know. Swap them out. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, stay tuned. But I am sort of making a note because, again, so this piece of Verdal I did cut into it. Actually, I should probably haul it out before I do all these grandiose plans and go, do I have enough left? Oh, yeah. Well, I have enough left for at least one more of them off of this same piece to do another one. So which one that will be and when that's going to come up is stay tuned for that. But that's my plan certainly for the rest of this Verdal. I will say another interesting thing of note is I remember when I started that piece in May of 2020 that I was kind of like, ooh, 40 counts really small. For some reason, when I worked on it this week, no problems with working on 40 count. None. So that was great. Oh, lovely, lovely, lovely. So mostly finished. Check back next week to see if I've changed my mind on that. In my X-Stitch app, I have not actually put a finish date on it because I'm debating what's happening with that joy. So hopefully the finish date will go in for tonight, once I'm done making my decision on that. All right, which brings us to Sampler Stitches by the Drawn Thread. This is my Stitch Along for 2022, which is being hosted by Sarah the Stitchin' Mommy as well. This is what it's going to look like at the end. So thank you so much for all of your very kind comments about how my Sampler of Stitches looks so far and your opinions around how the fabric looks. So here's where I'm at so far. Nothing has changed. I have done no more work on this, and I'm really struggling with the fabric choice. yes, I'm really struggling with it. So I've got to call into a fabulous friend who I've need to go see and have them look at it in person and opine. So I've not made a decision. I have dutifully gone back into the stash and have pulled out 3 options. Yep. Sorry, I'm just gonna hold. Whoops, that didn't work out. I'm gonna show them to you here. I kept them in their bags just so I could keep track of them and, you know. Okay. So here's where I'm at the moment. My first thought was to go back and do it on 32 count Silvery Moon Lugana. So I hauled out a piece of Silvery Moon Lugana, stitched a little test thing of the blue on it, the darkest blue. So again, this would lighten it up quite a bit, which is why I'm thinking about it. So that's number 1. My other option that I pulled out is, now this isn't going to show up quite as well on camera. So this is 32 count, 32 count pewter Lugana. So I don't know that this is still available. So this is a little more blue than the Pearl Grey that I'm currently stitching it on. I didn't do a test sample on here. Sort of, again, so fairly similar, slightly lighter, a little more blue. This is why I have to keep them with their bags. And then this one you're going to laugh at. This is also 32 count Silvery Moon, except that, and again, so both of these fabrics are technically 32 count Silvery Moon Lugana by Zweigart, but even in the camera, I think you can tell that they are a little bit different. Now, I didn't bother restitching a small test batch on here, so I haven't made a decision. And thank you so much for all the kind comments, and everybody thought it looked lovely. And again, the person who said, but it is your piece and you are the one that's going to have to live with it, which is absolutely correct. As always, I'd like to give all of you a vote, but by the way, my vote is like counts as a million, and so my vote always wins at the end. But thank you for throwing in your 2 cents. I always appreciate it. So I have not worked on this, and as of right now, I am heavily leaning towards restarting this piece on a slightly lighter piece. I think I'm going to like it better. As I said, I need to have a little bit of a consult with a friend of mine, which hopefully will happen this week, but, you know, check back later. Didn't happen this week, which is totally fine, so hopefully this week we'll get it together. But I'm going to go over for an opinion so that somebody can look at it, you know, in person. I'm not planning on changing my palette of colors. I am planning on sticking with the same palette of colors. Again, depending on my fabric choice, I may need to end up swapping out my Soie Perlee and Soie 103. Who knows? It could work on the other choices just as well. Haven't gotten that far. So I'm comfortable with my palette. I'm really heavily leaning towards that this is just too dark. Just too dark. Now, I will also say I am not planning on ripping this out. In fact, I think I should probably even go ahead and finish D, E, and F anyway, regardless, because then this would give me something that I could turn into goodness knows what. Use it for some weird smalls exchange or something, who knows. So I think I'm still going to finish DEF anyway, regardless of whether or not I restart it. But hopefully this week we will come to a final decision. But I really am heavily leaning towards moving it onto a slightly lighter fabric. Like it may end up being Silvery Moon. Yeah. I think it may end up being one of the Silvery Moons. Not sure which one, because again, I've got two pieces of fabric from my stash, which are both 32 count Lugana by Zweigart. But again, even with standard brands like that, dye lots can change. And now I don't remember exactly when I've got either one of these, but yeah, it's not showing up really well on camera, but they are slightly different. So yes, sorry Joanne, I have not made a decision, but I have to say at this point in time, I really am thinking I need to restart it and do it on a slightly lighter fabric. For all of my talk about darker is better and the stitches show up. Yeah, which also goes to the fact where another reason for me not to rip any of this out is if I restitch A on a lighter fabric and go, oh, that's not right, this was really the right call, then I can go back to this and keep going. So yes, stay tuned. Haven't made any decisions. Ugh, yeah. Sorry, I have to put them back in their bags. Otherwise, everything will go completely haywire. I laughed as I was looking in my fabric bin going, pewter Lugana. And then I went, it's probably an older version. Anyway. Although the other thing, now it is different from the Pearl Grey. And the other thing that I do know is that I feel like the color names for Zweigart fabrics used in Europe are actually different from the ones that are used here in North America. The color ID number is the same, but I think they go by different names. Anyway, so that's my sampler of stitches update. I've done exactly nothing and I've made no decisions. So at this point, I feel like, actually I was gonna say, I feel like I'm starting to fall behind in my answers. I am not falling behind. As I've said before, even if you're starting now, it's not that hard to catch up. And if I devoted one of my whip weeks to just sort of catching up on this, I feel like I can catch up reasonably easily on this. And so I'm not feeling bad about this at all. I don't feel like I'm falling behind. I feel like I'm doing very well on this, my very first stitch along, but I do need to make some decisions here. All right, so that's that one. All right. One more thing, and I forgot to bring the note with me. I got it in one of the newsletters that I subscribed to. This was actually from 2 weeks ago in their newsletter. I thought it was interesting. Let's talk about our infamous supply chain issues. There continue to be a lot of supply chain issues throughout our industry. And for this particular store, it was really interesting because they had a whole paragraph devoted to it and went, it sounded like their fabric shipments have like dried up significantly. You know, they're having a hard time getting R&R. I know that some of the base fabrics, this is from a couple of months ago, like I knew that like certainly one of my LNSs here, I want to say like it's 28 count white or antique white linen from Zweigart, which sounds like it should be like a relatively good staple. Like they were completely out and it wasn't coming on their next shipment and all sorts of things. So some of the staples are hard to get a hold of. I think part of the issue is that, of course, the white and antique whites are base fabrics for all of the other dyers to use. So whether it's Picture This Plus or Fox and Rabbit or Dyeing for Cross, like pick your fabric dyer. They're all looking for white or antique white linens to dye on. So there's, you know, additional pressure on those particular ones to come out with. So it was interesting. They were like going, their fabric shipments have dried up. They were talking about some of their fiber orders, which were, the fill rate for them was coming in at anywhere between sort of, I think one of their shipments, it was like about 7% of their order was filled. And on one of the other ones that they had ordered, it was like a 25% fill rate. And again, so it's not that your LNSs or online needlework shops aren't trying to get the supplies, but the supply chain ramifications are still being heavily felt for this particular industry, and we all just need to be patient. I was talking with a friend of mine this week who, I don't know whether it was on Facebook or Instagram, it could have even been a Flosstube, I don't know, where someone was sort of complaining about like they're tired of waiting. And the answer is like, I totally understand the sentiment, but it is a reality of the time that we are currently living in. And there's not a lot that anybody can do to try to fix that. And in fact, there was another one, a posting where they're sort of going like, the expectations as to how much longer these supply chain issues are going to be occurring could be at least another 12 months. If not slightly longer. So certainly, you know, the people I've talked to sort of saying they're still expecting to have issues into 2023. I think they're kind of, you know, hoping it will get better, but everything is, the whole system is still feeling the effects of the supply chain issues. So if you've got orders outstanding, you know, again, if you've placed the order, please honor the order. I know that there are certain shops, and again, so Picture This Plus, I know that, you know, again, they're out of some of the base fabrics, and what they are doing is that they're trying to get shop orders out to them, but to the extent that shop orders have fabrics that they don't have the base fabric to even dye, they're canceling those parts of the orders and shipping what they've got, which pros and cons, I get that. I get they're trying to get the products out the door so that the shops can fill the orders. The issue is that they are straight up canceling those fabrics that they don't have the base fabric to dye, which means the shops then need to reorder. Picture This Plus, as far as I can tell, is still working on 10 months from the time an order is placed with them to the time that it is filled. That's how big their backlog is. So again, if they're canceling something, it's you know, you may have already been waiting 10 months to get this fabric. And if Picture This Plus cancels it because they don't have the base fabric to dye and the shop tries to reorder it, it will be another 10 months. So I certainly know that one of my LNSs, that if you are caught up in that cycle, as far as I know, they've been reaching out to customers and saying, do you want us to reorder this? Would you like us to try to find a substitute, or do you want to cancel this? But again, if you've got an order outstanding with a shop and they're doing their best to try to fill it, please honor your orders with your LNS or online shop. Again, the majority of the shops that I deal with are small businesses, and canceling orders does cause problems for them. So again, please honor your orders with whoever it is that you've chosen to shop with, unless they've been reaching out to you saying like, do you want to cancel this because we're having a problem getting it. And again, it makes things interesting as we head into Nashville season. So who knows how that's all going to play out, and only time will tell, and all sorts of things going on with that. But supply chain issues still existing. I absolutely know that every shop is trying to do their best to get the products and get them out to you to fulfill those orders. But supply chain issues still existing. All right, and with that, let's get into the topic for this week, which is, let's talk about JBW Designs. Why? Because I started French Country Crown by JBW Designs on February the 6th. So I do have several JBW Designs in my stash. I was going to start off by saying they tend to be some of the smaller designs, but I'm just, yeah, other than the ones that I have on the top of my pile. So again, the stitch count for the French Country Crown is 70 by 63, which works out to, I'm trying to do math in my head, you know, sort of about 5 inches-ish, right? So not overly big. And again, there's, you know, this is not full coverage, so there is white space in here. So who knows what the total number of stitches is in that piece, but you know, it's a reasonably, does it say? Yes, over 2 on 32 count is 4 by 4.4 by 3.9. Over 1 on 28 count is 2.5 by 2.25. Not doing either version of that, but that's okay. So JBW Designs do tend to be smaller stitches. So if you're looking for something, a design for a smalls exchange, JBW Designs is a great one to pick something. Wouldn't take you very long to stitch it up. But of course, the ones that I have on the top of my pile for me to show you are bigger than that. I had a little bit of a chuckle as I'm pulling them out going, you will see that I have a theme about the ones that I've added to my stash. So this one is called Mary, done on red fabric, shown here done up as a needle roll. This, of course, is one of the larger ones, so it's 198 stitches wide by 70 stitches high. So over 2, that works out to 12.3 inches wide by just under 4.5 high on 32 count linen. So again, so this is probably just it's a little bit, okay, so it's probably about 4 inches shorter than the shamrock row that I showed you from January. So long and narrow. So this is a bigger one from her. Followed by Floral Alphabet 2, which is 138 by 117. So this works out to 8 3/4 by 7 1/3 on 32 count linen over 2. So it's a reasonable size. This one does come with the beads. I'm trying to not show the pattern. So technically that you could finish it off the way that it's shown here. I don't know if that's necessarily how I would finish it, but the beads, I call them beads, they're buttons, do come with that. This one is called Christmas Welcome. This is, again, this is a bigger one. This is 182 wide by 107. So this works out to 11.4 wide by 6.7 inches high on 32 count. Joy. This is a smaller one, so 94 by 46. This also comes with the little red heart that comes here at the top of the J. I'm just going to go back to the other one going, oh yeah, here's a really nice picture of this one. Christmas Welcome. This one is called Christmas Welcome. And again, this comes, or my version comes with the 2 white stars for this particular chart. Holiday ornamentals, so 3 charts in this one. just to get off the theme, because I know that you can tell what the theme is. She has them on all sorts of themes. So this is Sweet Nothing. So this is clearly a fall, autumn, Halloween type design. Again, this is a smaller one, 53 by 81. And then I think everything else I have here is all theme related. So yes, I tend to get a lot of the Christmas ones. She has all different things. So just because I'm only showing Christmas, or most of it being Christmas, do not think that she only does Christmas, because she does a lot more than that. She has seasons, spring, summer, winter, fall, baby, wedding. She's got a bajillion, she's got hundreds of designs out there. She also has her own Flosstube channel, so you can watch that. Now, the last ones that I'm going to show you are from a series that she's got. Now, I don't have all of them. This is called Sing a Song of Christmas. This one is Away in a Manger. And again, so these are all relatively small ones, 48 by 66, all done in the shape of a stocking. Really so that you do them as ornaments. This is number 4 in the series. Again, I don't have all of them. I just got the ones that I like. This is number 6, which is Oh Christmas Tree. This is 7, which is Oh Little Town of Bethlehem. This is 8, which is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. This is 9, which is Winter Wonderland. This is 10, which is Jingle Bells, which I have to say, I feel like the sleigh is almost the same. It's not. It's not identical, it is different. And I like, now the Jingle Bells did not come with the one that I've got, but I love this finish here with this little, with 2 miniature Jingle Bells up here at the top. I think that would be lovely. This is 12, which is I Saw 3 Ships. Clearly all Christmas carols, which is probably why it's called Sing a Song of Christmas. This is We Three Kings, which is number 13. This is 14, I'll Be Home for Christmas. So I feel like she's been coming out with like a couple of them every year for a number of years. What's the copy? So this is a copyright of 2020. This last one that I've got. The first one is a copyright of 2017. So there's at least 14 of them. I don't know if there were ones that came out. I will put a link to the JBW Designs website as well. You can go on there and check. I look at these and I know on, I want to say her name is Carol. She's got a challenge going out doing 12 ornaments in 2022, that if you did one ornament a month, you would have 12 new ornaments to put on your Christmas tree at the end of December. Now, that's not in my plan for 2022. I'm not planning on starting that because I've got all these other things going on. Again, it's one that I really like the concept of, and so I've got 9 of these. And again, so the stitch count is all pretty much sort of like in that 48 by 65 high. So again, not big, certainly not full coverage. And I feel like you could get these stitched up in a reasonable amount of time. So again, as I'm looking at my 5-year plan and potentially adjusting things and changing things, the concept of doing 1 ornament a month is appealing to me. First of all, I have to do a better job of getting things actually fully finished, but the concept sounds really good. And again, this is a really good, you know, as I look at my stash, I go, this is a really good series of ones that I have in my stash. You know, if I stitch these up one a month, like even if I stitch these at 9, it doesn't even have to be 12. I'd have to figure out the finishing thing, but you know, it sounds like a really great concept, so that may be added into my 5-year plan. Not exactly sure where it is. It's not going to be hitting in 2022, but again, I like the concept, and so far, again, my alphabet plan for this year is working out really well, despite the fact that I can't seem to make a decision on my fabric. Hopefully by next week, I will have made a decision and we can continue on. Again, stitching on it Sundays, you know, just spending Sunday nights working on it after I get my Flosstube all done and processed and all that kind of stuff has kept me up to date on the stitch along, which I think is great. So I think that's been working out well for me. I think that whole, now we're February 13th. Let's not kid ourselves. We've got a long way to go. So check back later. But I feel like that approach has worked out really well for me, and I think is going to impact my plans going forward. So hopefully this week I will make a decision on that, because this week was a whip week, which I think, again, I think a very productive week. I got the start on my Queen Elizabeth piece. I finished my Cottage of the Month, and I finished up my Choose Joy piece, which I think is fantastic. So 2 finishes this week, which I think is great. I'm still calling it a finish, even though I'm saying that I need to restitch the joy. I'm still calling it a finish. So 2 finishes this week. That means, of course, that this week is a new start this week. So that has... that I already know what that is. I've picked it out. The fabric is ready to go. The silks are in their floss away bags. They're on a ring. The chart is photocopied, ready to go. My working copy. I'm really looking forward to working on it tomorrow. So I will start that tomorrow on Monday, February the 14th. So happy Valentine's Day to all of you. So whether you're celebrating Valentine's Day or Galentine's Day or whatever, happy Valentine's Day to you. You know, whether you're with someone or not, do something special for yourself, period. I always think back to a boss that I had fairly early on in my career, and I always thought it was a brilliant idea. He never bought his wife roses for Valentine's Day, because he said they jack the prices up so much, it's ridiculous. And so what he did is on January 14th, he bought her a dozen roses and sent them to the office for her. And on March 14th, he bought a dozen roses and had them shipped to the office. So she never got them on February 14th, but she got 2 dozen roses, because he went, it costs the same amount of money. And so he would get her 2 dozen roses, and she would get them on January 14th, and she would get them on March 14th. And I was like going, I loved that idea. I thought it was really great. Anyway, I always think of him on February 14th when the topic of roses come out, because I thought his idea was the best. And, you know, I knew both him and his wife, and I know that his wife Joan also really appreciated it. She's like, I get 2 dozen, they're delivered to the office. She never, as far as I knew, she never explained to people why she was getting them, and she didn't get anything on February 14th. She just got her 2 dozen roses delivered to the office and enjoyed them, which I thought was great too. Anyway, so happy Valentine's Day to you. Do something nice for yourself. Find some time to do stitch, because that's what I'm planning on doing for Valentine's Day. I also acknowledge that this is Super Bowl Sunday. So for those of you that are Super Bowl fans, I hope you have a really great day watching the game. I'm probably not planning on watching the game. I tend not to be a football fan. I grew up in a hockey family. I don't play sports at all. I'm not good at those. But if I'm doing a sport, it tends to be hockey, just because I grew up surrounded by hockey. But for those of you who are Super Bowl fans and football fans, I hope you have a really great day. I was chatting with another friend of mine where his comment was like, I'm just hoping it's a really close game. And I feel like it could be a close game, but you never know. My dad's line is any team can beat any other team on any given day, which I think is absolutely accurate. So thanks, Dad, for the words of wisdom. I'm not even going to guess who's going to win, but I hope it's an enjoyable game for you football fans. And with that, I hope you've had a good week. I hope everybody is staying safe. I hope everybody is staying healthy. And I hope that you're all finding some time to stitch. As always, if you've got comments, questions, topics you'd like me to address, feel free to put them down in the comments section down below. Always love getting the comments because it makes me feel like we're having a conversation. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care, guys.